morning, afternoon rather. It's March the 8th, and the temperatures here in Indiana's turned off a little cooler. We're going to start getting our normal temperatures into the 30s and 40s for the high and 20s and 30s at night. And I wanted to do a little video of my seed potatoes that we had inside. I've got Yukon Golds and Baby Dutch. Well, the Baby Dutch were getting extremely soft on me. This is a Yukon Gold, but the Baby Dutches are kind of the same way. You can see how real spongy and soft. They're still good. You can see the eyes still coming out really nice on these. So what I did was I took 32-ounce cups and potting mix, and I went ahead and planted all of our Baby Dutches in these cups. I think I've got, let's see, I can count them over there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 24 of these cups. And out of the 24, this one sprouted up first. So before we start getting a lot of green leaves on here, I wanted to go ahead and get this thing planted. And the first 5 or 6, I'm going to go ahead and put in buckets. And what I'm going to do is, yesterday our city opened up to where we can go get our composted mulch and composted leaves. And what I have in the buckets over here, that was last year's bucket of potting mix and soil that's been used last year to grow potatoes. I'm going to mix that bucket of soil with the middle bucket, which is composted mulch that I got last year, and put in big leaf and long trash bags and set them outside and let it break down. So here's our soil. Here's our nice, rich, broken down mulch. And this third bucket here, I made a video yesterday on. It's called Black Gold for Your Garden. That's leaf compost. That was leaves that they picked up at the curb last year, run them through a composter, and there's a big pile of them over there. And we was able to go get a load of it. That's what's actually, if you can see that, up underneath my blackberries. And then over there on the strawberries, I went ahead and uncovered those. So that's what we've got composting in, or the compost on top of the blackberry. Every planter box, basically, I put a little layer of it. So we're going to go a third of the soil. We're going to mix all 3 of these buckets together, and then we're going to plant our potato in it with some tomato and vegetable fertilizer, a little bit of sulfur, and some bone meal. So we'll just move this back for a minute. Now our Yukon Golds, I have about 3 egg cartons full of these inside. I've got the where I'm going to plant these already ready to plant. I'm just waiting on the soil temperatures to warm up a little bit. So I usually plant our Yukon Gold potatoes in Zone 5 here in Indiana the 2nd to 3rd week in March, depending on the weather. So these will go directly in the ground like this. We'll just set that over to the side. And what we'll do is, if I can set that there without knocking it over, we'll go ahead and dump this bucket. And these are kitty litter buckets. Tidy Cat kitty litter buckets. And you can see the large holes I put in the bottom. And that's because I'm going to bury this bucket about 2 inches in the ground. And the potato roots can grow out of the bottom of this bucket into the soil underneath. You see those holes there. That's about big as your thumb. If it's picking up, I can't see. And if you'll look on the bottom of these buckets, they have a little triangle, the PPE. It's a number 5. It's probably not going to show up on camera. Right there's the triangle, but the number 5's in the center of it, if the camera will pick it up. And I've looked in forums and on the website, and it said number 5 is non-toxic. There was no solvents in these buckets. There was no paint in these buckets. I don't suggest using paint buckets and solvent buckets and things like that that are harmful to you. This was just Tidy Cats clay litter. It did have some fragrance crystals. But what I do is, once I dump the litter, I wash the buckets out with soap and water really well, and then I store them in my building for a year or two. I probably got 40, 50 of these buckets. And I store them in the building, and then when I get ready to use them a couple years later, you can't even smell that scent any longer. And like I say, the forum said these are all right to use because it's a number 5, and I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years, and I can see just fine out of all 3 of my eyes. Just a little humor for you. So, if you would rather use food-grade buckets, you go right ahead. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually better. This is what I have. This is what I'm going to use. I've researched it. It said there's no problem using these buckets, but you do what works for you. And you can see here, we'll get that little plastic out of there from last year, me drilling the holes. You can see the root structure from the potatoes still in there from last year. So there's actually a seed potato. You can see that from last year. And these have just been sitting outside. I actually took these buckets with my soil in them and set them up on my front porch because it's covered about a month ago to keep the rain off of them so it'd be a little drier. And then to that, we're just going to add this composted mulch. You see how nice and dark and black and rich that is. It's picking up. We're going to dump that right in there on top of it. I'm going to stir this in, mix it up. And then to that, you can see how light this is. I can pick this bucket up with one hand. This is nice, rich, black leaf compost. And we're going to dump that in there. Just stir it in. And that'll lighten that mix of soil up that's been sitting outside getting rained on and snowed on, and it's become so compact. And then it's going to add a lot of organic matter in there too. And potatoes like, there's another seed. No, wait a minute, what is that? Oh, that's just leaf compost. Potatoes like a nice, loose, airy mix. You can plant them in clay. I planted them in clay. I planted them in the ground. I planted them in potting mix. Planted them in potting soil. But you can see how nice and loose that is. Got some gloves here. See how nice and loose and airy. So we'll move these to the side. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and put about a, I don't know, this bucket's got probably a third of the way up. It's about right there with the soil mixture. And then what we'll do is, this is a tomato and vegetable slow release plant food. I ran out of my Burpees organic fertilizer, so this is what I have on hand. So this is what I'm going to use. It's got micronutrients and it feeds for 3 months. We're going to use this up. I'm going to get to the store here before long. I've got my rebate coupon for Menards, and I go over to Menards. It's a little hardware store here in Indiana. And what I'll do with this is, well, before I get to that, we'll just get over there and we'll get some more Burpees organic fertilizer. I'd rather use that than this, but sometimes you got to make do with what you got. And we'll take a tablespoon. We'll take a tablespoon of that. Maybe we'll do 2 tablespoons. That's about an ounce. We'll do 2 tablespoons of that. Stir that in really well, so we don't burn the roots up, just sitting that potato right in there on top of them. And then, this is bone meal. This is organic bone meal. A good source of phosphorus and calcium. So, we'll put a couple tablespoons of that in there. Stir that in. There we go. And then we'll take, this is fast-acting sulfur, and I just put a little bit in there because potatoes like a lower pH soil. So we'll just do maybe well, let's just do it like this. We'll just take about a half a tablespoon. Take about a half a tablespoon, sprinkle that in there. Mix that up. And that's about what we're ending up with. And it's about right there. Let's see. So we will try to get this out of here without damaging it if possible. You can see what that's looking like. I can get it in the shot there. And these are 32-ounce cups. Wow. You can see that, how root bound that is. So we're going to go ahead and break these little pieces of root off of there. See that all the way around there. This thing's ready to plant. And these seed potatoes are, I can't even feel it. So it's right in the middle there. So it's putting out some roots pretty good. Sprinkle that up a little bit. Okay. So we'll set that. Right in the middle there. And we're just going to pack the soil around it and top the bucket off with soil. And try not to break the little sprouts. Put the gloves back on. Just be gentle. We might break one or two, but that's okay. There's plenty there. Go around the edges first. Kind of see what it's looking like now. And we'll just top it off. And I might leave about an inch of that to compost that in with some mulch. So there we go. one seed potato, planted it in our bucket. And we're getting ready to have some cold weather, so I'm going to leave these outside, but I'm going to set them up on my front porch until they start getting sprouted. Once they sprout, I'm going to bring it around here in the back and just set them out here in the yard. And the good thing about buckets is if it gets cold weather, you can take them inside for a night. If we get down to freezing, you know, I'm pretty sure before Mother's Day gets here, we're going to get some freezing temperatures. So I'll just drag it in my front entry or set it out on the front porch. So that's how I plant my seed potatoes that I've already planted into cups. And the reason I did that was because they were getting real soft and I wanted to go ahead and get them to start grow before they rotted on me. Which, out of my other cups, I'm seeing the dirt pop up in in the top. So I know more's getting ready to sprout. And I've got probably enough for 2 more buckets of mix here. And once they sprout above ground in my small cups, or the 32-ounce cups, we'll get them planted in the buckets. And here in probably 2 weeks to 3 weeks, then I can get them outside in the ground. I have, let's see, take these gloves off. I have you can see right here, this is our blackberries we mulched in yesterday with the compost. This is a old fire ring I found at the curb, and I just lined it with landscaping fabric, and I've topped it off with the mulch too, and that's mostly potting mix inside there. So we're going to plant them in there, and then I have another box here. It's probably a 2-foot by 4-foot box here underneath these storm windows and shower glass panels, and I'm going to plant them in there. So we're going to get this thing probably set over here somewhere where I won't forget it. Maybe right over here where our lettuce is and our onions. And this is, last night we got to 30 degrees, so I went ahead and put my shower glass panel on top of the onions. And then these are the onions that we planted. I got a video of them, and I covered them up. And then actually, this was uncovered. We left this uncovered all night, and the lettuces did fine. And everything inside there last night at 30 degrees did just fine. All right, we uncovered our strawberries here yesterday and got them mulched in, and they did fine uncovered. And then these are our seed potato sprouts. I've got a video in my playlist on these and how to do these. These are not seed potatoes, they're sprouts, and they're still doing good and taking the weather good. So that's how we get our seed potatoes planted. And with any luck, we'll have some greens showing out top of this thing within a few weeks. Thanks for watching.